Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. I am your host, as always, Chad Porter. Joining me is Marcus Green. Marcus, we got a fucking show, man.
Yeah, it's gonna be this is apropos. It's all rain clouds over here, because that's basically what the show gonna be with these topics.
Hey, we had rain all day, too. You know what they say? April showers bring May mudslides.
Oh God! Did you just come over that? The hell?
I did. Mostly because it's the apocalypse. By the by, whoever did the voice of Cable in X-Men the Animated Series always said apocalypse with so much gusto and mouth spit. Apocalypse! It's not as on brand as Fabian Cortez saying Magneto, but it's pretty close.
Yeah, it's we could probably do that one day randomly. Like, go down a list of like people who said people's names in the over exaggerated a way that made them feel more epic than they were. Cause shout out to all the Teen Titans fans. Slade.
Let's not even just stick to names. We cannot. If we do a list of gusto, we cannot exclude Armand Asante screaming "Ugh!" in Sylvester Stallone's face. You betrayed the law. It's my favorite thing in the world besides Fabian Cortez.
Like, all your lines, I want you to say them as if you're a mid gag.
I don't know if there's 16 G's in that, Armand, but we're gonna just roll with it.
Oh man!
And then like you had the juxtaposition of Dread with Carl Urban going, "I am," like, all right, but where's the gusto?
You're talking a lot of shit, hotshot. What did you say? I said hotshot.
My friend who moved his ass to New Zealand because I have to imagine that my vitriol for him not liking Dread chased him to another country. He hated that movie for that one line. He said it was corny.
The hotshot line?
Yes. So I revoked his citizenship and sent his ass to New Zealand like Garfield did in Normal all those times in Garfield, the animated series. Put him in a box and I sent him on his way.
Thought it was corny. It was like, oh, come on, man. You just go ignore the whole reason why he said it in the first place? Come on, man.
Yeah.
It was a double. Okay. All right.
He's my friend, but he's not a smart man.
I'm not going to ask him how he felt about 2004 Punisher, because I don't even want to attempt to get that pissed off, even though it's all subjective. Like, who in the hell sings to his victim before he victimizes him? I'm like, me and Chad are looking at him like a man of great class and appreciation for the guitar arts.
That man had so much class, because he didn't just write it for him, Marcus. He wrote it for his funeral. How thoughtful. The only thing that would have been better is if Thomas Jane would have like sang a line back to him after he shot him in the neck with a knife. Yes, that is literally what happened. He shot him in the neck with a knife. He's like laying over his dying corpse. Can you still hear what I'm thinking? All my thoughts and fears. I love that kind of guttural rock country kind of sound, like that. Bruce Springsteen, who the fuck, the National. Just, it's very raw. I like that. I like stripped down kind of music. So I think that's dope. So we had some laughs, and I don't know his thoughts on The Punisher 2004, by the by. I hope it's good. I liked a lot of those pre-MCU Marvel movies.
A lot of people sleep on that, because these records, I'm pretty sure you've seen Morbius has been getting some shit, and I haven't seen it yet.
I seen the reviews.
Yeah, the reviews are like tanking it. But like a lot of those pre-MCU movies got a lot of great stuff in them that people just don't want to acknowledge, because, you know, a product of their time is like I even found a lot of good stuff in that Daredevil movie.
I think I think
Yeah.
Daredevil got the shaft because of the color grading, because like it was just, and that was the thing for the time period. Like, everything had like a blue hue to it for some reason,
Yeah.
and like I think that hurt that. But like Fantastic Four is the first thing I remember seeing Kerry Washington in.
Yeah, and it's not. I don't know if anybody's ever asked her about playing that blind part because that couldn't have been easy. If you,
The only part she did better than in that role was when she guest starred on Psych as Mira.
nice.
Marcus, you got to see her in this because like her facial reactions, like the way she emotes, is so dang adorable.
Yeah, she got this thing with faces. Yeah, she
The way she
definitely that.
scrunches her nose and like her
Yeah,
eyes. Oh my
yeah, and
goodness.
then shows some of her teeth. Like, yeah, it's a thing. And then of course the great Michael Chiklis played the thing along years before he killed our favorite Son of Anarchy. Um, accidentally, but
Wait,
uh,
Chickless killed her. Who did he
no,
kill?
he's the one that hit Jax. Michael
Was he?
Chiklis. Yeah.
He was the truck driver.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but my favorite Son of Anarchy was Opie, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure Michael Chiklis isn't black.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I didn't
Yeah.
realize that was Michael Chiklis. That's funny as hell.
It's funny of all the conversations we had about Sons, I don't think we went over our favorite. Of course, I think I mean, talked about it like we just
Chibs is
loved
up
it.
there.
Yeah, Chibs, obviously Opie, Jax by proxy, just who he was to the show. Um, Kind of hard not to love Traeger at points.
I loved Trigger. He was great. I also loved Juice.
Yeah.
Who else? Who was the black bodyguard? His name, I think his name was ironically enough, like a Marcus something.
Yeah, Mark. Forgot his name. I was just about to bring him up too, like, because I did not like the Pope. That actor, that's a great actor, but fuck the Pope.
Yeah,
He
but
essentially got overkilled.
his heavy was awesome. Like, I guess as
Yeah,
far as a villain, like, not even as a villain, he was an antagonist, but he wasn't necessarily any worse than the Sons.
yeah, he wasn't, even though Jax popped him anyway. Something Marks. Um,
Bishop Marks Bishop, something like that.
yeah, but that was good. Yeah, but I wonder how he felt about that first dread. If he hated that one because of that one line, I'm like, Jesus, then he must have must have walked out of the other one on the plane. Like,
If I remember to message him after the show, I'll ask him thoughts on Dread 96 or 95 and Punisher '04. So let's talk about some less exciting, less fun stuff. Obviously, these accusations have been building for a while, but over the last 7 days, Zachary Wentz, also known as Nash Carter, was fired by the WWE. His wife, Kimberly, who's an Impact star, started alleging some domestic violence and emotional abuse and verbal abuse. But this is a very sticky situation. It definitely brings up the Enzo aspect, where Enzo was, to the best of our knowledge, falsely accused of raping a woman who had severe mental issues, and a lot of her friends ended up kind of being the reason why Enzo wasn't eventually charged because they came to his defense. I don't know if that's going to happen in this situation, but we got to talk about it because it's wrestling and this is the underground. We try to be as open minded and as facts driven as possible. Basically, the situation goes, and there's a lot of specific details that I'm not going to touch on. We'll more or less just kind of cover the grander scope of things. Kimberly alleges that Zachary Wentz, Nash Carter, and her split, and that he had been emotionally and verbally abusing her over texting and the phone. She made several tweets about this, and it apparently started when she checked herself into a hospital. She doesn't say for what, but I think the general idea is for mental health issues. During this time, there may have been like the time frame that we were given is really non-existent. So like I don't know if this happened before or after, but she accuses him beyond abandoning her, because that was like what started this whole thing, was that he abandoned her in her time of need. She also accused him of hitting her, and she posted a photo on her Twitter account, which no longer exists. And frankly, I didn't see anything that would really register as an obvious strike. Now, maybe it was an issue with the coloring, maybe it was an issue with the shadowing, but I didn't see anything. She said it split her lip open, so maybe it was a few days old. Maybe she's making it up. I don't know. There's a lot of things in the air here. I personally didn't see anything on her face in that photo that would lead me to believe that she was hit. I could be missing something, and I admit that I could be overlooking something that somebody else may see. So she claims he hit her. She also claims that he abandoned her. She also claims that he says really upsetting things about the LGBTQ plus I, whatever it is, community. And like that seemed like a really weird kind of like, I'm gonna just throw this one in here because it really doesn't have anything to do with her. So like the accusations kind of seemed left fieldy. Carter, for his part, has not responded to anything about this, and Kimberly has just been going on and on and on and on about on social media, and it seemed like, yeah, you have a photo, you have a lot of accusations, he's not defending himself. That kind of seems like maybe there's some truth to it, but then I don't know his WWE name. Dez. Zachary Wentz's tag team partner in Impact. He's the fellow tag team champion in NXT. I don't know what he goes by in NXT. Desmond Xavier's NXT name. Do you know it?
Nash Carter and Wesley.
So Wesley, his wife, created a Twitter account just to combat the accusations. Her name is Queen E. Mary. Excuse me, on Twitter. And she went to task on Kimberly for a variety of things. So basically, we're going to read some of these. Kimberly claims that she was hit by her husband on multiple occasions. He manipulated me into keeping it quiet by telling me we were going to fix everything when he got back from Mania. Wes is married to a drug addict who is apparently Queenie Mary. And who cheats on her regularly, and I don't know her. But then Queenie Mary, we'll just call her Mary, tweets out a photo of her at Kimberly's wedding to Zachary Wentz with her husband, Wesley, and she pretty much says, you don't know me, but yet we talk so much, and you even said a year ago we need to hang out and ditch the boys and yada, yada, yada. So when things were happy and healthy between the couples, it seemed like Kimberly and Mary were fairly close. And Mary's gone to task on Twitter basically saying that everything you're saying is basically a lie. And this seems to be stemming over, like if you just want to read the tea leaves, if you will, this seems to be stemming over the fact that, God, there's so many names here in my head, I can't think of them all. Nash Carter didn't return to Kimberly after WrestleMania, and that seems to be where a lot of these issues lie. But Mary has pointed out that Nash Carter has been living with her and Wesley for months now. And apparently there's been a lot of issues with Kimberly and her mental health that has pretty much driven this to be the situation. And Mary's even said at one point, I think it was Mary, that it was her who was verbally abusing Nash Carter. God, there's so many damn names. This is why I hate the WWE. Stop changing damn names. So there seems to be a lot of he said, she said, and when it comes to verbal abuse, it seems at the very least there's fair criticism on both sides. So we continue on with the fact that Kimberly got served with divorce papers by Nash on the 6th. He's been done with her. She's mad that this is all happening, so she's turning to Twitter because she's outraged that he doesn't want to be with her anymore. It really is that simple. And let me not forget to mention that when she got served those papers, she was so upset she ripped up all of Nash's posters, one-of-a-kind ones with wrestler signatures. This is a case of an enraged soon-to-be ex-wife who feels she's entitled to alimony. So this seems to be where the people who are defending Nash Carter are sticking to, where this individual is emotionally disturbed and creating lies to ruin Nash Carter's career. Now, for the WWE's part, they've pretty much said, hey, Vince McMahon's been accused of rape twice. Like, we're not firing anyone over this shit anymore. Matt Riddle didn't get fired. Randy Orton didn't get fired. No. But then, like, the ultimate trump card, like the ultimate, like, Joker card just came out of nowhere. Kimberly posts a photo of Nash Carter doing a Nazi salute with a Hitler stash. Whoo! And the WWE said, like, whoa, you can beat your wife. You can be accused of rape. We don't care. That we're washing our hands of. And that seems to be the reason why Nash Carter was fired, was the Hitler photo. Now, his best friends are 2 black dudes and a biracial Puerto Rican guy. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say he's not a racist. I know, Marcus, it's a fucking limp branch that I'm out on. But, like, you don't run in that circle for as long as you have if you secretly hate minorities. Like, eventually you're going to be outed. I think this was more him doing a dumb photo, sending it to her as a lark, and then her saving it and then trying to ruin his reputation. That's an opinion. Now, for me, I never would have taken that photo because I'm not a fucking idiot. But if you've seen some of Nash Carter's tattoos, common sense and intelligent thought aren't always things that go hand in hand with the guy. He's got some pretty trashy tattoos that you probably only get when you're drunk. So I have to imagine that Nash Carter does some dumb shit from time to time. And that appears to be the reason why he got fired. At least that's the working theory. According to Dave Meltzer, this is a really weird situation because he was fired for the Hitler picture. The other allegations is not what he was fired for. Meltzer later stated again on the show that it was the photo that got him fired. He said, you have to understand Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon had allegations against him multiple times over the years. So if he is to believe that Carter is innocent, then he has to presume that other people that claims are made about may be innocent. So he's not a guy who is gonna fire everybody the minute somebody says something. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's the situation. So then we go on, and there's apparently a lot of sympathy for Nash Carter, which is generally not the thing in wrestling when somebody's accused of some debauchery. No one's looking at Joey Ryan and going, you know, Joey, we were a little hard on you. A lot of people were saying, well, Joey, we weren't hard enough. Austin Aries isn't really getting the glance over. They're kind of thinking, God, why can't you just diss a fucking peer? So to have so many people on Carter's side kind of raises the question. Is all of this true? Or is all of it a lie? One of them, Gigi Dolan, is apparently very sympathetic for Nash Carter. Meltzer said that there is sympathy for Carter among people in NXT, including Gigi Dolan. He said in NXT there are very sympathetic towards him. Gigi, of course, because she is the girlfriend. So that seems to be another wrinkle that I just found out while we're talking about this. Apparently, he's already got another girlfriend, which to me is kind of scummy. If you can't wait until the divorce is final, then you really don't have a leg to stand on. Like, that's my personal opinion, Mark. Is like I treat marriage as a I can't think of words. As
it's sacred.
Sacred. I was thinking of sanctimonies, and I fucked myself up. But it's very sacred. I'm not saying you need to get married. If you want to do 40 years of just dating somebody, that's cool. You do you. But if you stand in front of your friends and whatever deity you believe in, even if it's just Alfred, what's his name? Alfred Fonzarelli. Is that Fonzie's first name? Is Alfred? Even if it's just Fonzie. I believe when you take that vow, you need to truly believe in it. And I think people who take vows and then break them, ad nauseum, even if it's just whether you're a police officer, you're a doctor, you're a military personality, if you're a politician, a judge, once you break that vow, oh, Marcus, I think you swing for that. Like, honestly, I think you swing for that. Like that, if you don't want to do it, that's fine. Just say I don't want to take the vow. Like, I'm fine with that. But like the minute you break that sacred oath, oh, it pisses me off. So, like, I'm not happy that this dude's already stepping out before he's married. And let's be clear, just because you filed the divorce papers and they've been served doesn't mean you are divorced. Until the judge decrees you are no longer married, you are still married.
Chad's like stepping out early, huh? Such a rascal. No, but fucking rascal. But yeah, I mean, look, you know, those things, you know, mean different things to different people. Some people, you know, don't honor a freaking cell phone contract, much less a handshake agreement, let alone a marriage. So, you know, different strokes, different folks, I guess. I mean, this whole situation is not, ball term from you. It's certainly a sticky wicket because of everything coming from both sides. Well, primarily one, because it's like you said, he's staying quiet and people are coming to his defense, which is cool. We talked before about how it's always been interesting. Probably the best word we use when spouses come to their partner's defense on Twitter. Primarily the wives come to the defense of the husbands. But this is like a wife coming to the defense of a friend of said husband. So it's interesting. But I mean, with that level of closeness, you would imagine she knows better than most people around the situation. If for no other reason than that she's getting information from my own husband about it. So,
well, since Carter's living there, I'm sure she's getting information from him. And like the rascals, to the best of my knowledge, there's at least 4 of them. It's Myron Reed and MLW. Trey Miguel, Nash Carter, and Wesley. They're the 4 main rascals that everyone knows. And apparently 2 of them are not living together. And I would imagine that if one of them was stepping out and doing things that they didn't approve of, that there'd be some vocalness about it. Like, they don't seem to be quiet guys. So
yeah, and it's again another reason why it's a sticky wicket. Obviously, we're coming off of covering so much of the speaking out movement and having to reconcile, well, not us on a deep level because we don't really get emotionally attached to those guys like that anyway, outside of what they do in the ring, but just a lot of people having to kind of realize that a lot of these guys aren't who you want them to be just because you like who they are in the ring. And, you got to be careful with the women because so many women have come out and obviously, a lot of the scuttlebutt around it has been, why they didn't speak up earlier. And it's like, it's not really for, us to determine specifically when we're not the victims. But in this particular situation, I'm not one of those guys that, I know this is going to come off controversial, I'm not the guy that goes by that whole mantra of like, believe all women. I'll hear all women out without question. But jumping so quickly to the believe train has left a lot of room to kind of get the table turned on you, if you will. So you look at this situation, I look at this situation and go, okay, like I get the allegations and obviously whatever happened, and that's her truth. But it does raise a mild eyebrow when you get to, like you said, she brought up the LGBTQIA plus thing, and I almost wish we would have had an AJ soundbite for that, because that is a mouthful. It would have been perfect. And then you go behind that with the Hitler or the Nazi photo, and it's like, okay, I get that, but that kind of, because then you question somebody's end game at that point. Like the allegations are the allegations that happen, but those 2 things, like you said, taking a jab at the reputation comes off as potentially unnecessarily petty when we haven't even confirmed whether or not the allegations are true yet.
It's like, you're accusing someone of stabbing you, but then you're also like, and he also kicks dogs.
Yeah.
No one really, like, with all due respect, saying slurs and doing tasteless salutes is not worse than punching your spouse. Yeah, like, there are layers to this, people.
If the concept of him hitting a woman isn't bad enough, it's like, I don't know how much but again, it's the pile on of it all, which this is not me picking a side. I don't got a dog in this fight.
We're having a conversation. We're not
exactly.
We're not defending or blaming anyone.
But it does bring in the question, like if you have to pile on, it does bring in some mild questions about credibility at that point, because then you go to, Wesley's wife's thing, and it's like she's just hurt because of a situation that was not abusive or illegal of any kind, and she's being petty about the situation. And you look at like The abuse allegations, okay, but the other two things to rub it in, just so you can like, wait a minute, he touched a woman, okay, but this, like this bastard said something about the gay community, like it just, then then now you're trying to manipulate because those are two very sensitive. So nobody likes Nazis. Hopefully, most people don't. And obviously the situation around talking trash about the gay community is a highly sensitive thing. So that might end up and potentially she knows this, that might get people to view him in a negative manner even more so than him putting hands on her. But that's also the society we live in. But it's so that's looking at it from that end. His end, he's obviously not talking. I don't know if I would either. I mean, what can you say that's really gonna hold up? All you can really do is try to combat that in the best legal way possible and hope you come out on the good end of it, and I guess appreciate people coming to speak out on your character's behalf. But it's a bad situation to be in general, because even if it's the situation where she has blown stuff severely out of proportion, the narrative is out there now.
I agree with you in the sense that I don't believe all women. I investigate all accusations.
Yeah.
And it's not just female, victims. It's male victims. If someone's accusing somebody, I'm not rushing to the "you're a bad person," because there are plenty of people who can sit here and tell you that I was falsely accused. We got a dude who, granted, I've been rewatching a bunch of old Philip DeFranco episodes because I'm like, all right, I'll give him another shot. Like, it's been a while. So I don't remember when this story was, but there was a black guy who was on death row, and he's like, I didn't kill this person. And then the other dude's like, yeah, I definitely killed this person. And he's like, can I get off death row? And they're like, And he's like, but I didn't do it. He did it. He's telling everyone he did it. Why am I being punished for it? And eventually his death sentence got commuted, but he's still being held in prison on a life sentence for a crime somebody else is taking credit for. And it's like, listen, people lie. People lie for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
For people to sit and go, no, she wouldn't lie to ruin his career. Why the fuck not? People are generally terrible these days because they don't have any morals or values. Now, I say that to say this. I don't necessarily think she's lying necessarily. Yeah. We don't know this guy. We know nothing about him.
Yeah.
He spends most of his time high. You got to think that a dude who spends most of his time inebriated or in a different, consciousness may at times act in a way that isn't becoming. Yeah. Is it possible he backhanded her at some point in their years-long relationship? Sure. I believe that completely. Is it possible she's lying to get sympathy? Sure. Completely possible. And something we've seen quite a lot of. What's more than likely is they're both just bad people together.
Exactly.
There's a reason why most relationships get to this point. It's because both people have gotten to a point where they are no longer able to function with one another. Yeah. And I wish we would stop having this desire to blame someone. It takes two people to fuck something up this bad. So it's one of those things where I look at this and I say, more than likely, some of this is true. Maybe he did abandon her. Maybe he was emotionally abusive. Maybe he did hit her. Maybe she hit him. Does that make it better? Does it make it worse? I don't know. That's an internal thing.
Exactly. It's
So it's one of those things where I think a lot of this does reek of pettiness, but it may not be untrue pettiness. It's like maybe she does have all the keys to the kingdom, and she's like, you know what? I don't intend on opening up all the doors to let the Huns in to do the pillaging.
Yeah.
But if you fuck with me, I will.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that may be what this is. It may also be she's just lying to ruin his career. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it might be a small situation that she's blowing up because she is, and when people are in their feelings about stuff, like I said, humans are gonna human at the end of the day, man, and that's why that watching this whole situation with the Will Smith thing, which people are still talking about. Like, look, if that's the worst thing you've seen in life, you need to live more. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like this international incident. That's an international incident. Okay, all right, it's fine. It's all, I guess your perspective and perception of it. It is what it is. But
Who was it who said it was Amy Schumer who said she was like emotionally disturbed by that?
it's I think her the Amy Schumer, Wanda Sykes, a lot of people talking about how they are kind of still, I guess, mentally or emotionally scarred by it. It's 'cause they're still settling from shock. I'm like, shock? You didn't get slapped, but then the whole thing in the comedian community has absolutely come out in droves to support Chris Rock. And the comedian, you know that.
Man, I've seen some of those videos. Oh,
Yeah, it's these takes are intriguing, to say the least. The whole thing about and I like Cheryl Underwood, but the whole thing about Cheryl, like now this is gonna, and she's not the only one. Now this is gonna embolden people to come up on stage. I'm like, first off, like, can we change these conversations? The concept of going from city to city, not being familiar with a lot of these cities, and constantly standing on a stage in very intimate settings with a room full of random people that you don't know, um, and essentially getting off jokes on them, which a lot of them may not take funny. That's an inherently dangerous job anyway.
yeah.
And I think we've heard, and really Bill Burr is a shining light in all this shit show that this thing has become. Like, historically, comedy club security has been atrocious.
Yeah.
So a lot of these comedians are using this, I think, as a thing about, we kind of been an underserved part of the entertainment community, and this is just highlighting that further. So we kind of use this to kind of, get our stuff off. And I'm like, that's cool, but you know, putting 10 on 2 is not gonna help the situation at all. People like comedians, people want to laugh, but not everybody finds certain comedy funny. And you can say something, but you control what you say. You can't control how somebody reacts to it or responds to it or how they take it. So that's just what it is. But this is ultimately a sad situation on both sides. You never want to hear this. And I think the other part of it is what you kind of brought up about the fan part of it. And we talked about this on the speaking out stuff. Like, a lot of times people jump the sides because they like the individual. A lot of people are jumping the West Leads, particularly fans are, because they don't want to see MSK be broken up.
Well, everyone but Izzy's parents.
Oh God. What the hell's going on with that? What is this? Why her parents keep coming up? Like, what's going on with that?
I don't know. That dad has some issues because apparently he went after who was it? What's his name? He was in Lucha House Party. I want to say El Ligero, but I don't think that's right.
Lindsay
Lindsay
Dorado.
Dorado. That's it.
Oh,
That's it. Apparently he had issues with Lindsay Dorado. I'm like, that's all right. That's a thing. So when it comes to this, though, this specific situation, you're right. People are jumping to specific sides for a variety of reasons. It's not just who they like more; it's who they empathize with more.
yeah.
So like, there's a lot of women defaulting in the well, I believe Kimberly because she's the woman and she's saying that I was abused. There are a lot of
Yeah.
dudes who are like, listen, I've been on the other end of this. I've been accused of falsely of things too. I will say this. I'm not picking a side, and I'm not going to judge either one of these two individuals until more comes out. Because, yeah, I'm a judgmental bastard, but as long as I know I'm judging you fairly. I can't judge you fairly when I don't know all the details.
Yeah, it's a weird thing because you understand the emotional plight on both sides, and you
Mm-hmm.
kind of look at it like one side when it comes to the women fed up and obviously rallying behind instantaneously behind one side because there's been a long history of non-believability, and um when it's come to the other side with the men, when it's been proven otherwise, and men have been falsely accused, there's been a severe lack and the reverse response to the inaccountability or the unaccountability when it's come to applying the same pressure you gave for the accusation to the retraction.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, it's not true. Oh, that sucks. Next victim, like, it's like, what? Like, no, 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 no. I'm gonna need y'all to go on the tirade and go on the parade of she sucks because she basically tried to ruin this man's life for utterly no reason, but that never happens. And if it do, it's not publicized, So I get it on both sides, but the inability for people to kind of meet in the middle and realize that a lot of things can be true at once, and we kind of need to get down to the middle of it, as opposed to if something happens to Chad or somebody walks up and slaps Chad, I'm gonna be more offended than Chad is who got slapped.
I'm going to just jump to the chase. If I got slapped, I fucking deserved it. I know who I am, Marcus. I know who I am. But with the situation, it's not about taking sides. It's about finding the truth. And I think that's one of the things that too many fans, too many people, in general, don't want to do. They want to do this bullshit where they can figure things out and state the obvious, but it's not the obvious. And I like one of the biggest kind of things was Camila Cabello dated who? Shawn Mendes?
Yeah.
I don't know who either of these people are. I know Camila Cabello is gorgeous. That's all I know. But apparently, like, everyone thinks Shawn Mendes is gay. So, like, when they broke up, a lot of people were joking, like, Camila Cabello and her best gay friend broke up. And I'm like, you don't know he's gay. You're assuming he's gay because that fits the narrative you want to believe. And I'm like, that's fucking stupid. And the same is true here. It's like, you can have an opinion and an idea on what you think happened, but opinions aren't facts. They're opinions. We don't know what happened here. I think there may be truth to both situations, but also I think more than like what this is a situation of two people who don't work well together, who stayed together too long for the worst reasons, and eventually became a toxic coupling. I think there may have been domestic violence on both sides, and I think there may have been verbal abuse on both sides. And I think the best thing to do in that situation is to just fucking let it go, move on with their lives, and find peace and tranquility elsewhere. But that doesn't seem to be the case with Kimberly. And now she deleted her Twitter account for a reason. Was it guilt? Was it because she was being harassed? And why hasn't, Zachary Wentz? I'm sorry, I already forgot. Wesley something or other.
Nash Carter, yeah.
Nope, that's the wrong guy. I was already wrong. See, but like, when it comes to Zachary Wentz, Nash Carter, why hasn't he spoken up? Somebody accuses me of punching somebody, the first thing I'm doing is going to a lawyer and drawing up a cease and desist and a libel lawsuit. And I'm like, let's go to fucking town. Like, we're going to war. Prove that I'm these things and I'm not. I dare you. But he's not taking that, arc. Now, granted, and this is going to sound scummy, but in the grand scheme of accusations against male pro wrestlers in the last year, tussling with your wife is probably on the bottom tier thing. And more than likely, like Stone Cold Steve Austin admitted to hitting his wife. He pled no contest, meaning that he hit her, but not under the essential situation that he was accused of. But like that dude just main evented WrestleMania at 57. So like the idea that you can't rebound from spousal abuse, in this instance, I don't think is true. I think I think he's gonna have a career again. It's just gonna be one of those things where it's gonna take time and he's going to need to come out and explain a lot more things than maybe he wants to. He might have to admit to some fault for people to forgive him if they don't. There might be people who don't have any issues with him already. But there are going to be people who do. And he's going to need to eventually, start talking about this if he wants a career again, because this is going to follow him until it's addressed. But I'm just going to say this. If R. Kelly can marry a 14-year-old, you can come back from just about anything.
Yeah, it's so weird too, because regardless of whether somebody starts this on Twitter, you're never gonna finish it there.
No.
And you're really in the middle of it. You're not really gonna get any headway. It's just gonna muddy the water. So, I don't really blame people when they don't come to Twitter. And a lot of times we do see, like, how many times we had shows talking about these quote unquote hard nosed wrestling guys that you don't want to mess with, but then they ultimately end up being tweeting deleters.
Yeah, happens more than you think.
And it's like, so if he's trying to handle this properly the legal way and not getting into the Twitter mix of it, because you're ultimately gonna have people dogpiling you or probably for the wrong reasons, or people rallying to your side just because they feel like they need to stick up for somebody, or they really don't, like I said, they like you and they don't want to believe that it's a potentiality. So but like you said, man, it's probably one of those situations where it just got toxic. That's, a good buzzword that's been going around for years now. And, probably needs to separate. But hopefully they works out for both of them in a positive manner, because I just don't think it's working out with them together clearly anymore. So.
The last thing I'll say about this, because this was an important note that I kind of forgot about. The general belief is that the WWE believes that her allegations against Nash Carter are not believable. But I also want to point out that we had a dozen people telling stories about Randy Orton sexually harassing them, and he wasn't done anything with. So I don't know. I don't trust the WWE to run a official investigation at all, be it good or negative. Like, I don't think they have the capability of doing it. I think they just go, fuck it. Then that's it. But somehow we have to go to even worse news. Fucking hell. It's been that week. So if you thought the Kimberly and Nash Carter of it all was bad, wait until we tell you about Tammy Sytch. So Tammy Sytch has been arrested, I don't know, 40 times? I don't think I'm being hyperbolic by saying that. And it's always over alcohol or drug, or there was a few spousal abuse accusations on her end. She punched one of her partners while she's on probation. Basically, this woman is a walking train wreck. I know we're supposed to be sympathetic to mental health issues, and I try to be. I really do. But when it comes to people doing this kind of stuff, it just, I don't know how much sympathy I can have for you. Man, I wish I could be Derek Carr, who can be like the most tranquil, forgiving sumbitch in the world, but I can't. That's not who I am. So here's basically what happened. Tammy Sytch killed a guy. And I said that without joking. Like, that's why we're here. She, according to the Ormond Beach Observer, she was cited by the police during a press release, and it wrote that Sytch failed to stop while she was driving southbound on US 1 near Granada Boulevard at 8:28 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As a result, she crashed into a stationary vehicle, which subsequently hit another car that was located in front of it. The vehicle of which Sytch hit, the driver of the vehicle Sytch hit, Julian LaFrance Lassiter, was then pronounced dead after he was taken to Halifax Medical Center. Sytch was also taken to the hospital and later released. Authorities now have a search warrant, so they have clearance to obtain a blood sample. The article noted that the police are using this as part of the investigation into whether Sytch was impaired when the crash happened. Toxicology results are pending. For those interested, the third driver was not seriously injured. So, Marcus, at this point, I feel like this woman needs to just be in jail for the rest of her life. I know there's going to be a lot of people coming to her defense, maybe, but it's just one of those things where I think at the end of the day, there are certain people that will never be better. There are people who will never get better. There are people who are just destined to be this type of person for one reason or another, and that's when you dig the deep, dark hole and you throw them in. At this point, Tammy has ruined, damaged, and harmed so many people in her own life that it's led to her eventually taking the life of another. Whether she was impaired or not, this is an example of her inability to act in a society in a civil and decent manner. Like, the lack of respect that she has for human life was on display here, because I don't know how you hit a car so hard from behind that you kill a guy, unless you were just being blatantly, obnoxious and either not paying attention or were inebriated or what have you. Like, you don't get to that point without doing something to get there. So, I have no sympathy for Tammy. And, to be fair, I haven't had sympathy for her since 2007 when she went to the Hall of Fame or whatever it was. So, I don't know. Marcus, is it time that the authorities just kind of throw Tammy away into a deep, dark cell?
Something needs to be done, because how many times have we heard these different stuff with over the years, over her numerous encounters with negative life experiences, most of which have been brought on by her own doing, unfortunately. And it doesn't really seem she'll go away for a little while after something happens and come back and do something new. And that pattern just continues, and it's like either it's something she can't help or it's just something she's not trying to.
Mm-hmm.
Willful ignorance is sometimes, worse than, is worse a lot of times than ignorance itself. So it just doesn't seem like she's a person that really wants to consistently get on the right path and extend a period of time. And whatever help she's tried to get has not really worked. At this point, I don't know what can be further done. like I said, she has spouts here and there where it seems like she's trying to be on the straight and narrow, and then something else happens. It's like it comes off cruel when I say this, but it feels like we've been watching her dark side of the ring for a long time, and then we're kind of just waiting for her to not be here so it can air. You know,
Yeah, there
it's
there doesn't seem to be a Scott Hall resurrection coming for Tammy. Not anymore. Maybe before this
yeah,
you could, but DDP can't work miracles if you're behind bars. So
yeah. It's sometimes yeah. Sometimes some people just can't be helped because they don't want it, and they just kind of accepted the worst parts of who they are and try to mediate that as much as they can. But they constantly get in a situation like this, and like you said, this is the worst combination of everything that we've heard and seen her go through. You've been responsible for taking somebody's life, and the worst part about it is essentially a hit and run. So you didn't care enough, or you weren't in the right headspace enough to be able to care enough to at least go and potentially check on that individual. Obviously, we don't know. We weren't at the scene. We don't have scene details. What I would imagine if you took off, then that's just kind of what it is. I'm gonna have to assume that anyway. So
I don't
this
know. I
this
don't know if she did take off. To be clear,
okay.
I think she was arrested on site, but I didn't see anything one way or another to that. She may have
Yeah,
taken off for all I know.
yeah.
I just want to be
But
clear about that.
yeah, appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, hopefully that she did. Hopefully she did do the humane thing after the inhumane uh accident like that. And yeah, man, it's just you never want to get to those situations, but whatever led to it is it's like I said, it's the worst combination of events, and this kind of does feel like the final nail because it's like everything she's done, she's stayed away from stuff this severe, and but now it's like it's bad.
So unfortunately, we have more bad news to talk about. Although, granted, in comparison, it's a de-escalation. I've been a big MLW fan for a year plus. I think they have a great roster, great booking. We're going to talk more about them here in a little bit because Hammerstone's going to have a big all match with Richard Holliday that I'm going to gush over. But one of the best reasons to watch MLW over the last year plus has been the parks. LA Park, also known as La Parka, and his son El Hijo de LA Park and LA Park Jr. I don't know why they have the same name, basically, because it's with the son of LA Park and LA Park Jr., so it's like, I don't know. But when you see that, and you see that they all got fired, it's like, all right, now this is an interesting conversation. Let's talk about it. So here's the deal. According to the Wrestling Observer, MLW fired the Park family for going into business for themselves and throwing real punches during the March 31st MLW Intimidation Games event in Dallas. According to the report, the group got considerable heat due to getting rough during a post-match run-in after Alexander Hammerstone versus Jacob Fatu versus Mads Kruger match. It was noted that the attack was supposed to set up a match between Fatu and Park the next night, but the Parks went off script as they got too rough and ruined the angle. The Observer notes that the Parks not only connected with real punches, but also hit Fatu and Hammerstone with reckless chair shots that busted them open. As a result, MLW owner Court Bauer fired all three of the Parks, and they were sent home on April 1st. Fatu still competed the following night, but he had a match against Bestia 666 instead of the originally planned match with LA Park. Bauer has since publicly commented on the story, issuing the following response during Twitter. The problem was they betrayed the trust of the fellow wrestlers and deliberately hurt them. Someone ended up in the hospital last Thursday night. Zero tolerance for that. Bauer later responded to a question about Hammerstone and Fatu's health and said that they were doing much better now. The latest incarnation of the Park stable debuted. Sean Ross Sapp, Fightful Select, reported an extensive update on the situation. And he also spoke with Hammerstone directly. Ross Sapp wrote that the initial attack on Fatu was a planned angle, but when the Park family threw real punches and a high-risk chair shot, Hammerstone got involved. So apparently Hammerstone got involved in an angle that didn't involve him because he was legitimately trying to help Fatu. In doing so, he got hit with the chair shot to the back of the head. The report goes on to note that, per sources, Hammerstone was ready to fight all three members of the Park family, and that both he, the MLW heavyweight champion, and Oh, sorry, I read that wrong. Wanted to fight the Park family, and that both the MLW heavyweight champion, which is Hammerstone, and Fatu handled the situation the best they could. Ross Sapp went on to report that the motive for the attack remains unclear, other than some speculation about Park trying to teach his son to be intimidators, among other possibilities. Fightful cited one talent who stated that Park tried to shoot on them previously, but Park otherwise hadn't had any issues with MLW up until this incident. Ross Sapp wrote that Park was apologetic when Power let him go, but he told others that the conversation was negatively impacted because he couldn't speak good English. When speaking with Ross Sapp, Hammerstone stated that Fatu underwent concussion protocol at the hospital and his own head was busted open by the chair shot. So, this is an ugly as hell incident. L.A. Park has always been someone that I consider to be one of my favorite wrestlers in the industry and historically, so like this is very disappointing. Marcus can't do this, so I'm going to ask you this because like we're not going to have a conversation about whether or not you can do this and get away. No, I'm going to ask you this question. We saw Sexy Star ruin her career by trying to break Rosemary's arm for real. She got blackballed. I don't necessarily know if that's the right call. I have my doubts on blackballing somebody for life for a heat of the moment incident that you can learn from. That's just a personal observation. Do you think L.A. Park will be blackballed the same way Sexy Star was, considering while Star tried to break Rosemary's arm, taking a chair shot to the head is far more dangerous long term? Do we see L.A. Park in the United States again? Or his sons?
I think it's highly doubtful. You never know with these situations. We've seen people that done far worse get treated far less and vice versa. As you just kind of went through with us talking about the domestic situation. So one thing we know that you cannot do, that is that number one violation, as is the antithesis of the golden rule in this sport, is you have to protect your partner.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a dance out there when you're in that ring. And if you don't care to do that, then you don't care at all about nothing. To the point where a wrestler not even involved in the scenario gets involved to stand up for his fellow performer, like you really out of line at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And that we talked extensively, obviously, when the Sexy Star thing happened, I was extremely disappointed because of the reputation she had built over here stateside in Lucha Underground. And obviously we have a mild bias with Rosemary. Mild.
Little bit.
But you can't do stuff like that. These people lend their bodies to you. They have a certain amount of faith you put in a performer. Obviously we're not wrestlers, but we know, and we hear them talk about all the time, that there's, not necessarily a blind faith, you have an inclination, but there's a lot of faith you put somebody when you lend them your body and you allow them to toss you around and do this, that, and the third, drop you on your head, and you expect them to do that in a way that won't paralyze you, give you brain damage, or God knows what else. And you do that on a consistent basis in a lot of times in scenarios that don't even warrant any form of safety. So yeah, you cannot take liberties with people's bodies like that. You certainly, it's even worse when you include steel chairs. Like it's so funny you bring this up. I just went back and watched, because somebody posted on Twitter, those chest shots the Hardys gave to Brock.
Oh God!
And I'm like, yo, and to the other side of that, with everything we know about concussions and advancements with that, and just head injuries in general, like you playing now, like you won't smoke, as the Street Profits would say. It's like you don't play with people like that, man. It really is ground zero, to get blackballed. It warrants that, because people, all you got in I think in wrestling is, your ability to pretend, to be safe.
Yeah, your reputation.
Yeah, your reputation is everything. So it's like, it's like a comedian that is notorious for stealing other people's jokes. Nobody gonna take you seriously. Like, it's like it's out of here. So I think there's a high potentiality for that, and specifically when it's a family endeavor. Like, you really bad for, like, it's not just one person stepped out of line. Like, this is a family thing. So that's bad. I think the potentiality for that to turn into a Sexy Star situation is really high. And I think, like you said, I don't know the penalty for that in Mexico, but I would imagine because of just the lineage with the lucha style, I would imagine that's severely frowned upon as well, because I feel like it's even worse with the lucha style because you really lending your body at that point. You know?
More than
So,
likely, they're going to be fine in Mexico. They have enough clout and notoriety that they'll get booked. But stateside, that's going to be a much harder thing after this, especially considering most of the promotions are now owned by individuals that are more on the, as far as wrestling is concerned, more liberal side. You know, more guys are willing to cut bait with negative personalities than ever before. So maybe their careers aren't over internationally, but at least in the stateside, I have a hard time seeing them bounce back from this. Speaking of over, NWA might be over the 50-week-a-year model, according to Billy Corrigan. Billy Corrigan says that as far as the long term, there's two equations to that. On one hand, there's the classic modality, and I was in it when I was at TNA. I call it the 50 weeks a year, because most wrestling companies, when they got to around Christmas, they tend to shut down for a little bit, even if they're still producing content. So let's call it a 50-week-a-year model. Impact does it weekly. Obviously, WWE and AEW does it. I can't speak for everybody else in the market, but we are there. I am not totally convinced that the future of wrestling, it will be a 50-week-a-year model. It might be daily. It might be like how people are watching Yellowstone. They're going to want to binge watch a season. I can see where you would drop a wrestling season on the public, and they will watch 6 hours of wrestling in a row to get it to the finish. And then they got to wait a couple weeks to get to the pay-per-view. So I think those things need to be looked at with an open mind. Marcus, do you think wrestling companies should binge watch or binge drop wrestling products to build up to a pay-per-view weeks in advance?
I think it's a model for some, obviously not for all. I think that might work if that's a situation you want to take NWA in. It's not like we haven't seen them experimenting with bridging their, the time-honored tradition with a lot of the newer aspects of where we are now in terms of the business. But obviously that'll never be a WWE model because again, more is more.
Mm-hmm.
If they could air every, I mean, what the freak, the one of the dudes, I forgot his name. He was like, he wanted to extend like Raw or SmackDown to what, 4 hours if he could. He said
Nick Khan, yeah.
Nick Khan. It's like that's the motto. More is more. So I think that works. I mean, essentially, we ended up getting something like that with Impact with the World Title Series. Like that, when Impact did it, it was not intentional a lot of times, but we've also gotten it. Yeah, good. But we've seen this done in a way. Like we've seen it done, and again, anytime I get to say it, God, I miss Lucha Underground. That you put out a season, and obviously it wasn't a Netflix situation where they put out all 20 some odd episodes, however many episodes those seasons were. But you build it up week to week, and then you go off until the next season. That builds a level of anticipation, and then you come back into it. Honestly, with all the products that's out that we talk about that you and I watch, which aren't necessarily consistently the same shows, as a fan, a lot of times I could use a break.
That's true. I see it. I see it kind of in the sense that pro wrestling has always presented itself as a athletic contest masquerading as drama. So it brings up this question that I would ask to you. I know to an extent you're a New Orleans Saints fan. Do you spend a lot of Sundays watching the Saints play?
No.
Okay. Let's say you did. That'll help the conversation go. Let's say you did. Are you watching to see the big highlight plays, or are you watching to see the finale? I would argue that most people are watching to see the finale. Let's see the end result. Some people, some more obsessed fans, want to see how they got there, break it down, have conversations about what went wrong, what went right. But most people are just there to see the end.
Yeah, the purists of it all.
So if you're watching to see the end, Marcus, but I told you before you started watching the game, listen, the Saints win by 4. Do you have any interest in watching the game now? Most people would probably say no, because they know the end. The issue with wrestling isn't the model. It's the fact that wrestling today is still well, actually, you know what? Maybe it is still a model. But it's that wrestling is still adhering to the model of the 1970s for how they do television in most cases. You cannot do tape shows anymore. People are going to find out the results. And then once you know the results, there's no reason to watch the end. Impact, MLW, Ring of Honor, these are the biggest hindrances to their product. And we're getting to a point now where financially it's not that much harder to do live shows anymore. At least, financially speaking. So that's the issue that wrestling companies need to take, a grapple with. They either need to do less shows so they can do only live shows, or they need to do all live shows. Because we're past the point of no return when it comes to taped wrestling. If you know that so-and-so is going to be taking on so-and-so on a taped show, aren't you just going to look to see how it ends? Most people would. And I think that's the issue that people need to adjust to. Not how many weeks a year we're shooting, but if it's taped or not.
Yeah, I think I see it from both. I can see it from both sides. Like I said, different shows, different folks, different companies. Go about it at a different rate. Specifically, when you're also having those taped, and then we know you're also going on the road to do live shows. So if we know a result here, but we see a different guy with the belt there, like we've talked about that's severely hurt Impact in the past.
Mm-hmm.
This happened here, but this guy's a champion on Twitter and whatnot, and it's taken so long for a lot of the TV stuff to catch up to the current stuff. And they've gotten better with that over the years, thankfully. But like you said, that's kind of killed a lot of the enthusiasm for them. I think, going back to my point with Lucha Underground, that's worked for them because it was always displayed as a TV product.
Yeah, the wrestling was almost second to the general storylines, and the fans didn't see the general storylines. Like all the stuff with Dario Cueto in the offices, that wasn't broadcasted.
Exactly. So, in a lot of ways, it was like TV, something like a Yellowstone. When they went off, they went off. There is no such and such. I saw Rip alive in real life. He obviously didn't die. It's like no. Like that's a different thing from the in-show thing. Whereas these other wrestling companies, like, if you tell me he was in that match, but he didn't have the belt or whatnot, and then I see him now and he got the belt, something went down, and I need to be caught up. And a lot of times the fans are like, I'll just watch what I'm looking at now as opposed to going and backtracking. Because the sad part is they won't go back. It won't necessarily be like me and Chad. We can hear a result and be like, okay, but this is Eddie Edwards and Minoru Suzuki, or the Guns and Machine Guns, and I don't know, friggin' another universe. Machine Guns can face the Time Splitters, although they sharing Alex Shelley. I don't know how that works, but you go back to watch the match because you know the match is gonna be worth it. Most people aren't gonna do that. They're gonna tell them the result. They're gonna sour on it. They're not gonna want to see it, no matter how good the match is, and they're gonna get to something they can see in real time. So it is like I said, I get it. And so some of the conversation might be geared towards wanting to give wrestlers a time off, or whatnot in certain instances. But like you said, it's like that live dramatic show thing. Like you can't really fake it when you're doing the play because the audience is right there. The performances, it's everything in the moment. So I mean, it's definitely a conversation in a lot of ways that's been had that we've covered over the years, and I don't know if there's necessarily a happy medium. Obviously, so many different mediums are being digested differently now that, wrestling finds itself as a unique product just by its foundation because it is still live performance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's definitely going to be a conversation. I will say this. I agree with you. The Impact days where they were recording 2 or 3 months of content at once. Ugh.
Dead, man.
God, that was awful.
And all in the meanwhile, while contracts are expiring leading up to pay-per-view. Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that wasn't great. That wasn't great. I think the best model would be a live model where you stagger the roster and give them a month or two off every few months. That way the product keeps going. but
Yeah.
you don't need to burn people out. Now, that would work best if you do weighted divisions, so you could have your world cruiserweight champion, your world middleweight champion, your world heavyweight champion, and you can have top stars in different weight classes. But you really can't do that with the traditional pro wrestling mindset at the moment because there's always just one top guy. Unless you're someone like AEW where you have 40 top guys, or your Impact where you don't have a specific top guy so much as you have a group of good workers. So like WWE could never do that because they only have 2 top guys and only one of them works more than 8 days a year. So I think that's kind of what needs to change in regards to the future, but we'll see if that ever ends up happening. Speaking of happening, Marcus Walter, aka Gunther, he's now on SmackDown with Marcel Barthel. Is that really his name?
It was supposed to be Bartel. Yeah.
Well, then don't put an H in there. You fucking Germans.
Then again, it might have changed because again, he's on the main roster now, right?
Well, his name has changed. His new name is Ludwig Klaus. Not better.
That sounds like that sounds like a Russian that'll be in a Fast and Furious series.
It sounds like the full name of Klaus in American Egg. Granted, his actual full name is Klaus Heisler, but I think that's what it is, Heisler. But still, he's talking fish. Marcus, Gunther and Gunther and Ludwig sound more like, Euro Germans doing a party scene. Right? Like let's get some techno music, some lights.
If Cruella was a Russian-based thing, those would be the dog guys.
Yeah, I could see it. Although I haven't seen that movie, so I don't really know what the reference. And don't tell me the reference, because all new Disney remake movies suck. Hardcore. Pass. I didn't even realize that there was a Lady and the Tramp live action. Jesus Christ, they need to stop.
I haven't seen that one yet. I've seen. I actually quite dug Cruella, but I mean, I think those live action adaptations are severely subjective because it's like you can't. You never really get back to that original at all. But you could create something new. But yeah, I mean, Gunther, freaking Ludwig, and Klaus. By the way, I've never seen anybody. Anytime I've seen somebody named Klaus, I've never seen like a small Klaus. That's a big dude's name.
And yet here we have a small Klaus.
Yeah, that is. What the freak? Y'all really don't care. Them Butch, it's just I don't get it. It's like somebody told them you really got to stop cutting these names off and keep them with a first and last name, and then it's like, so we're gonna give them 2 shit names instead of just cutting off one and making it sound stupid. So instead of Buddy Matthews, you're just gonna call him Buddy. Now it's gonna be like Buddy Goodfoot. Like what?
All right, you know what? That's better than Buddy. I'm fine with Goodfoot. It's better than Buddy.
Well, I legitimately like somebody wanted to give their dog a first and last name, Buddy Goodfoot.
See, like that. No, I'm fine with that. That's fine. Another person who got a name change is Raquel Gonzalez, who's now Raquel Rodriguez. And everyone's like, oh, why did you change the name? And I'm sitting there going, why did you pick such a bad name to change to? These WWE names are just they're ass, Marcus. They are ass names. Wesley, Raquel Rodriguez, Ezekiel.
And I love the guy. Well, this has been Dolph Ziggler has always been bad.
Yeah, but that's bad in a good way because you will never forget that name.
Yeah.
I genuinely did not know who Raquel Gonzalez was for a good year and a half. I thought Eddie's daughter was back with the company, and I don't mean that jokingly. I literally thought it was. I thought it was Eddie's daughter, because I think her name was Raquel in NXT at one point. And I'm like, oh, she came back. That's fine. I didn't realize it was some former basketball player. People need to realize that your name is so Buddy is terrible in the Dolph Ziggler sense. Like, you'll never forget it, but you'll also never get over with it. But in the Raquel Gonzalez, Rodriguez situation, it's more. It's just a bad name. Some real names like Shayna Baszler works, Ronda Rousey, that works, but you need to have a name that really stands out. And this ain't it. This ain't it at all.
Dude, it's not good. It's between that changing their music and then just their characters in general. These guys are being ran into the ground. Like it was cool to hear over the weekend. Like to think that Karen Cross went to New Japan. Um, Kind of get some of that stink up off him or whatnot. But yeah, it's just this is just continuing to get worse. And if guys like Tommaso and some others are coming up, it's like I don't know, man. This is not because a lot of people like it's just a name. It's like no, it's not.
It's
It's
not.
not. It's never been that simple. Never been that simple. We came up in the era in the '90s where for a lot of those guys, their music was so good thanks to Jim Johnson that it propelled them far faster than their character work did because it was so recognizable. Everybody knows what the glass break means. The if you smell, the kick in with the games music. They don't even have that now. There's no recognizability. There's no individuality. There's just a bunch of people coming out there that's in shape with stupid names and
Not
bad
even
music.
stupid names. Like modern name your kid me names. Like how many Raquels are currently 12 years old right now? Like it feels like they're going through baby books from a decade ago, going, yeah, we're gonna use this name. Like say what you want about the racist skullet, but Hulk Hogan is a name. Macho Man Randy Savage, Ric Flair. Granted, Roddy Piper sounds kind of like you're cleaning out, a kitchen trap somewhere, but still, it's a name.
We know,
Dusty Rhodes. Like, these names pop.
we know how you are about one. We know how you are about one word names, but here comes the bias. Sting.
There are some that work. Sting.
Yeah, yeah.
You know? Hell, well, maybe not Lex Luger, because if you just call him Lex, that wouldn't make any sense. But sometimes they did call him Lex, and that was fine. Mr. Perfect, Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, Kevin Nash, Diesel sucked. Sorry, I can't rep that. The Undertaker. I'm not even an Undertaker fan. The Undertaker. So yeah, wrestling needs better names. Sorry, Jonah. You're a hoss and a half, man. I love you, but Jesus, that name's terrible. A good name, Falaba. That worked. So I don't know. I would like to see some better names, like Alexander Hammerstone, the World Heavyweight Champion of LNW. He's taking on Richard Holiday at the upcoming Kings of Coliseum event on May 13th. Marcus, I've been talking a lot of MLW lately. I think this feud is a modern version of Hulk Hogan and Ted DiBiase. Hammerstone is a Hulk Hogan archetype minus the racism. And I think he's a bigger star than MLW will ever be able to truly appreciate. And I think if he had a bigger machine behind him, he would be much bigger as a wrestling name. This is one of those matches, and I bring these up every so often, that if you're not an MLW fan, I urge you to check this match out. Richard Holiday is MJF, but if he could work and wasn't legitimately the most annoying person in the world. Holiday is hilarious in promos. He's got such great charisma, and he's a hell of a hand. This is going to be a hell of a match. My only concern is this is, in my opinion, a bit rushed. There might be a reason for that. Maybe Hammerstone's contract is up. Maybe Holiday's contract is up. Maybe they have bigger plans for one of these guys going forward. Maybe they don't think Holiday's ready to take the belt from him. I don't know. But I feel like this could have been the biggest match in the company's history if it was built up properly. They've only been feuding for about 2 months, give or take. But they've been tag partners for years in a stable. They were part of the the dynasty with MJF going back 3 or 4 years. So, I feel like this match needed a lot more build-up. But it's still going to be awesome, hopefully. I have nothing to ask you, Marcus. I just think you should check it out. And if you're new to Hammerstone, he's a musician. He's not much of a singer, but he's a hell of a musician. He's got a new group band. I don't know what it is in actuality, but it's called Blown Away Luna. You can find it on Spotify. He's released 5 tracks. The guitar work for these songs are phenomenal. I cannot say the same about the singing. I would suggest he gets himself a friend to do vocals. But yeah, that's all I got. Marcus, thoughts?
No, man, I've always taken your praise and recommendation about MLWC. I've checked it out here and there. I mean, he got some great stuff. They're probably maybe the most underrated promotion um, right now. In a lot of ways, that's good uh, because for a lot of these, places, you don't want them to get a bunch of false hype because they built a lot of good credibility, not off these random, big names that everybody like just come and flock to real quick, and then all of a sudden the company's the best thing ever because the person they all like is there. But like just a roster and good quality wrestling in general. Also, I mean, how brilliant was it to kind of install some of that Lucha Underground goodness in it with the Azteca Underground stuff into it as well. So clearly, there's a lot of brains in that company. But yeah, for you to call back to that legendary feud and bring it reference for these two, I mean that's a big deal because we just don't get those matches in modern day. And if we do, they don't really, in a way, they don't ever come close to touching the original. So, like I said, I praise definitely go check that out. Speaking of names, I know we were talking about names, but obviously, like I had told you on last show, we had covered Super Card of Honor. There was a young lady on there who went head up with Mercedes Martinez for the Ring of Honor Women's Championship. Name was Willow Nightingale. I'm like, man, that's a hell of a name. It's a hell of a name.
Yeah.
And she's a good one. I just had discovered her with that show. I think she's been wrestling for GCW for a while, but GCW is kind of not my cup of tea. Even with everything that they got going, and I'm glad they, because they're another company that's got a lot of buzz, but just not necessarily my style. But that young lady is brilliant. So, but yeah, it's a lot of names and places out there and other stuff to watch. Chad always says watch more wrestling, and it's a lot of good, actually quality stuff out there to watch right now. I think MLW is certainly one of them.
So Austin Theory dropped his first name. Now he's just Theory, which I have one. Your product sucks because you don't know what you're doing anymore, Vince. There's your theory.
What's the last person that he endorsed as like his boy, if you will, or his guy that actually like went on the greatness? Because didn't he endorse Masters?
Maybe not publicly, because he endorsed Drew McIntyre in storyline and behind the scenes.
Yeah,
I think he was a Masters fan. They were very high on, I think it was Triton. He didn't last long. Stephanie herself has been a big fan of the big boys. Like Matt Morgan, I think was one of hers, as was Nathan Jones. So like they have a history of picking very bad talent. Because like they couldn't even get Braun Strowman over enough to keep him around. Because like that's why they fired him. They fired him because he was making too much money but wasn't a big enough star. Because if you were a big enough star and you were making money for the company, they wouldn't have fired you. So, any final thoughts on anything, Marcus?
No, that pretty much nothing big coming out of Impact or anything like that. That pretty much covers it.
And we're gonna wrap it up. RealNerdCorp.com, RealNerdCorp.com. We're on Twitter at NERDCORP. We are on our personals. Marcus, you can be found on Twitter at ParadoxKid, ParadoxKid.
That's the kid.
You can also find him on his other wrestling podcast, The True Penny Show, which you can find on Twitter by going to their Twitter account at True Penny Show, TruePennyShow. You can also find me on my Twitter account at Chad's. Nope, that's my Instagram. Chad. Damn it, I was about to do it again. Chad Nerdcorp. There we go. CHADNERDCORP, and on the Instagram at Chad's Photo at CHADSPHOTOHUT. Be sure to check us out next Monday for another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for giving us a chance. And remember, as always, to watch more wrestling. Marcus, take us home.
Good night, me.